What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Fantasy Football Funhouse. I am Kevin Cotillo. I have with me here tonight Mr. Steven Marcus. What's going on, Steve?
Oh, not a whole lot. It's a little lonely in here.
Yeah, it's quieter. It's a little calmer. I didn't get made fun of for how I introduced the show for a change. That was kind of nice.
Yeah. It's noticeably different. If everyone hasn't noticed by now, Sal not joining us on this episode. He's big time to me and Kevin yet again.
Yep.
Since he's taken up this new writing gig at Fanball.
I don't know if you heard, he's writing at fanball.com.
That's right. You can check out his work every week over at fanball.com.
He has a writer's page.
That's right. Ever since he's taken up this job, I would like to say that he started treating us differently. It's just that the job finally fits how he's always treated us. So now he's more justified.
Yeah, he's treating us exactly the same. But it's definitely seemingly more justified, and it's definitely more public.
That's right.
The public, the public, degradation that we're feeling right now is just, people are starting to see it more, and you can tell since he's not here, he's off at the live Matthew Berry podcast show. He's probably having a drink with Mr. Berry himself right now, and I'm sure Matthew's telling him how great he is because everyone tells Sal how great he is, right? I think that's what people do.
He
according
asks
to him,
people to ask him that or tell him that.
Yes, he does. He does prompt them quite regularly. So, but we are here. We're gonna hold down the fort tonight, and I think we can do it, Steve. I think we've done it before. We've had some good shows without him.
Some of the best.
Some of the best, yeah. And I think that this will be another one. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm glad to hang out with you for the next hour and talk about some football. A lot went on this weekend. It was another crazy week in the NFL. And week 3 has come and gone, and we're getting closer to that quarter pole. And, that's when we think, at least in my mind, I think you can really start to see some trends and really start to see what's going on. So we're inching ever closer to that. So week 3 was a big one. A lot of things to point out. We'll get through a lot of those as we go. Before we get to any of that, the first thing I want to mention tonight, Steve, is that we are a member of the Gridiron Experts platform. That you can go over to gridironexperts.com and check out all the articles and everything that they have on their website. We've talked about it many, many times. There's a lot of good stuff there. Really easy interface for the website. It's very user friendly. You can find anything you need. And then they also have the store, which has some great fantasy football gear. And of course, the podcast feed. So I think we got 3 podcasts on there now. We're one of them. If you're listening to us on that feed, thank you very much. Continue to do so. They have great stuff. Continue to use them. If you're listening to us on our own Fantasy Football Funhouse feed, head over to gridironexperts.com and check them out because, like I said, lots of good information. Steve, I know you've been there and you love it.
Yeah, absolutely. If you would actually like to learn stuff, you might want to go check out the other podcasts on the feed. Very informative. And like Kevin said, they've got all the types of content that you would find on the other, fantasy football sites, except for they're going to make you pay for it. Everything on gridironexperts.com is free. They've got waiver wire stuff. They've got rankings. They've got everything that you need to help your fantasy football team. So not checking it out is only doing yourself a disservice.
Yeah. Absolutely. I feel like you need to do it. So get over there to gridironexperts.com. All right. Before we continue on to the actual games, we're going to talk about a little bit of news this week. And so far, there's really not a lot. The biggest one I think we got to start the show off with is a sad one for me. As you know, my boy, Jimmy G.
Yeah.
He is out with a torn ACL. He will be out for the rest of the year. It's just depressing. I own a lot of Jimmy G shares. I own a lot. I traded a lot of Jimmy G shares, so that's good.
Yeah.
But definitely depressing to see a guy that was. He's been up and down a little bit this season for sure. He hasn't been the stud that I think everyone expected him to be right off the bat. But those of us who paid attention expected him to be decent, but not great, and I think he was. But either way, when you see a guy go down like that with an injury for a team that was up and coming on the rise, the offense was starting to put it together. Definitely a sad day. And it's even more sad when you look at CJ Beathard coming in and being the quarterback there.
Yeah, that's what makes it difficult. Jimmy G was his own fantasy option at quarterback, But then he elevated the players around him. He made George Kittle better. He had Pierre Garçon. He had Marquise Goodwin. All these players benefited from Jimmy G being under center for San Francisco. Now all those players take a hit, and they lost Jerick McKinnon before the season even started. So the team is just struggling as far from an offensive standpoint from what we expected coming into the year. And you have to knock all these guys down a notch a little bit with Beathard coming in, because we saw what he was last year. He had games where he was solid, but he doesn't have the consistency that Jimmy G was starting to show. And I feel for the guy, from a football level, but from a fantasy level, the whole entire team kind of takes a hit.
Yeah, for sure. And you were in our league chat earlier today when I was getting into a little bit of a debate. Kittle is the guy that you mentioned off the top there, and it was a debate with our friend Rob over the production of Kittle going forward, and what to do with Kittle. He was saying, his post that he put in there suggested that he was selling Kittle everywhere. Now he backtracked that off that during our argument and said that he meant, that he would probably be trying to get what he could because he thought he could get an RB2 or a wide receiver 2 for him. First of all, I guess I got to ask you, do you think anyone would give up that for Kittle?
I think that'd be a little tough. Before the season started, I think that you might have been able to get something out of him, or after his first game that he had, where he went off against the Vikings. That's where I traded him after week 1.
Sure. What did you get for him, by the way?
I packaged him with Carlos Hyde, and I actually ended up getting James White and Travis Kelce, because Travis Kelce started off with the terrible week 1.
Sure.
And Carlos Hyde had a touchdown. George Kittle had a really good game. So I sold high right there. Well, I mean, Carlos Hyde's been solid all year, but I sold high and bought low on Travis Kelce with his one bad week.
That's even a relatively fair deal, right? You took a step back at running back for sure to take a big step forward with tight end. So, I get that. Anyway, we don't need to belabor the point, I guess. Rob knows that I was right and he was wrong. So
that trade was almost vetoed, in which I told everyone that I would have stormed out of the league and just quit instantly for vetoing that trade.
Always good when you can threaten to quit a league and people actually care. I know that if you did that with Fluff, you're like, all right, well, cool. It was a good run.
That's right.
Oh, man. All right. So other quarterback news around the league. We've gone through 3 weeks, as we mentioned, and we've now seen every rookie quarterback drafted in the first round to take the field. Baker Mayfield takes over for Tyrod Taylor after Tyrod Taylor leaves with a concussion. And then, on the flip side, Arizona, Sam Bradford just struggled through the game and gets replaced by Josh Rosen with 4 minutes left to play. And they throw that kid into a situation that brutal situation to take over a game in. Mayfield succeeded. I thought he looked great. Rosen struggled a little bit, looked good. Didn't look like the moment was too big for him, but did make a bad play and threw an interception. But overall, I don't know that I blame him for that. And, I guess both of them have been named starters going forward.
Yeah, which is awesome. I think it's something that we all kind of expected to happen at some point during the season. And here it is, starting week 4. And we've got, Darnold starting every week. We've got Baker Mayfield presumably starting every week now. Josh Rosen. We're just waiting on a couple other guys, right? We got Josh Allen. I'm sorry. We got Josh Allen and then Lamar Jackson. He's the last one there of the 5 quarterbacks that, to take over, but it doesn't look like Joe Flacco's going anywhere. But yeah, it's exciting. I agree. Baker Mayfield looked awesome. You could tell that the entire team it changed the entire outlook of the team. So I'm excited to see what that's going to happen there. And Josh Rosen, like you said, thrown into a rough spot, 4 minutes to go against the Bears defense, the best defense in the league so far, one of the scariest in terms of pass rushers and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, you would like to wait and see what he has to show, in games going forward, but very exciting. Especially, I own Josh Rosen in quite a few spots now. So I'm excited. I'm very happy he is finally taken over.
Yeah, I am too. I'm curious to see what he'll do with a full week's worth of preparation as a starter and to see what he can do with that offense. I mean, that offensive line looks brutal. David Johnson has not been able to get it going at all. They seem to be using him in the absolute worst possible way you can use David Johnson. But there are pieces there. There is talent. There's still Larry Fitzgerald. There's still David Johnson. You got to assume that the offensive line can get it together. Ricky Seals-Jones has looked pretty talented overall. So there are pieces there. If he can come in and provide a little spark for them, hopefully they'll turn it around a little bit. Baker Mayfield, definitely the one that I agree. He looked great coming in. He's just a natural leader. You can just tell the team rallied around him. There was an elevation to their overall play and spirits in general as he came into the game. So I guess we can start with that since that was the Thursday night game. The Browns get the first win in, I don't even know how long at this point. 21-17 is the score over the Jets. And with Mayfield coming in, I found it interesting that it didn't really change a lot of the way that he uses he used the rest of the offense. I mean, obviously Carlos Hyde had the big day with the 2 touchdowns and almost 100 yards, but interestingly enough, Jarvis Landry's still the main point of focus for Mayfield. He had 39.1% target share, and with 9 targets, and then most of those came in, and then Antonio Callaway in a full-time role had some. You realize he ran 42 routes and was in on 89.6% of Cleveland's plays.
Yeah, Hugh Jackson said that he was going to step into that role after they got rid of Josh Gordon, and they followed through with that. He is somebody that I actually started him in one league, hoping to catch up, get a little bit of that first game hype from him, and didn't end up happening. But all of the signs were there, and I was pleased with how they were using him, how often he was getting targeted. His targets have gone up every single week through the season so far, from 1 to 4 to 10. His air yards have gone up every single week from -4 to 68 to 185. And then his receiving yards, they were at 81 last week in week 2, but only 20 this week. But he had a few throws down the field, you can tell, but just by his air yards, that he just didn't catch the ball, or that was overthrown. But they were thrown to him deep. Like Kevin said, he had 42 routes run this week. I think that is very promising usage for him, and having a better passer under center in Baker Mayfield, I think that only means better things for Antonio Callaway going forward. We know that Jarvis Landry, he is what he is. He's, that medium range guy. He's going to get a ton of targets, but Antonio Callaway he's a big play guy. And I think that those big plays are going to come. I think they were close on Thursday. I think that he's got better days ahead, and he's going to be a very solid wide receiver going forward.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think that he definitely better days are ahead. He's got talent, and hopefully he keeps his head, screwed on straight, because with that kind of talent, I'd love to see him succeed in that offense. Great pieces around him. I guess the one question I have, and this isn't a stat thing, and we talked about it before the show. Screw Sal, we're gonna do what we want with this show because
that's right. It's our show
here. Yeah. So, but I want to ask you: is Hyde doing enough? I mean, he looks great. I mean, there's no chance that we're Nick Chubb or even Duke Johnson at this point are really. I mean, I know Hugh Jackson keeps saying he's going to get Duke Johnson involved, but at the end of the day, he's not doing it, and with good reason. Hyde's been good.
Yeah, he's been extremely solid so far. He hasn't been very flashy. He's gotten in the end zone every single week, with 2 of them last week. So he's been very efficient with what he's gotten. But he's getting the job done. He's not doing anything above and beyond, but he's doing everything that's asked of him, and he's putting in the tough yards. I don't understand why they would go away from that. And I think that we're talking about the elevation to the offense. Carlos Hyde's part of that offense that's going to get a lift from Baker Mayfield being under center. Tyrod Taylor is pretty one-dimensional, and so I don't think that he poses the same type of threat that Baker Mayfield does. I think that opens things up for the running back. I think that Carlos Hyde will be able to continue putting up numbers. Obviously not a touchdown every single week. That'd be crazy, but he's going to have the yards, and I think he's going to have the opportunity to have touchdowns every single week, which is all you can ask for.
really hurting all my Nick Chubb shares, but what are you going to do? Glad to see Hyde. I'm a big Hyde fan, so glad to see him getting the opportunities. One more question. I know we're spending a lot of time on the Browns, and we'll move on, and there really wasn't much to talk about with the Jets on this one anyway, so we can move on pretty quickly. But David Njoku's been in on 82% of the snaps, but he just has not really produced. He has what? I'm looking for his receiving yards here, and I can't find it, obviously. So there he is. Nope, that's not him. All right. Anyway, it hasn't really panned out for him. He gets 36 yards in this one on 2 catches and 2 targets. Overall, like I said, 82% of the snaps. Do you think that we can expect him to get some more catches and some more volume? We were all pretty high on him coming into the season.
Yeah, we all were, and I think we just kind of underestimated how much better the wide receivers were, and so how much less they actually would need to target the tight end. It's crazy to see him getting that much volume on the field, that high of a snap share, and to have that few of targets and receptions and production. So I think that would probably start to even out as the season goes on a little bit longer, but I don't think that we're going to be able to expect the type of volume and usage from him that we thought he was going to get coming into the season. They've just got too many other guys around him that are getting the job done, and Landry and Hyde that are just taking opportunity away from him.
All right, we will continue on here. And, anytime you see a game with 80 points on the board, you have to expect that there's going to be some fantasy goodness. And the Falcons and the Saints were just that. Obviously, 43-37. The Saints win this one. There was 10 total quarterback touchdowns between the two guys in this one. 8 in the air, and Drew Brees rushes for 2 as well. So 5 on each side. Brees gets a little bit of an uptick there because he gets the 6 points as opposed to the 4 on 2 of those. So tell me what you took away from this game, because it was phenomenal to watch. It was a great game. These two teams always play each other tough, and they certainly didn't disappoint this one.
Yeah, I think what I took away from this one the most was obviously the breakout game from Calvin Ridley, having the 3 touchdowns, and that puts him at 4 touchdowns on the year. And how many does Julio Jones have, Kevin? He has 0.
That would be 0. Yes,
he has 0 touchdowns. It's all right. He has 0 touchdowns, and so that is a little concerning. Now, these aren't all, huge breakaway plays that Calvin Ridley. The one he had last week was a very nice play. He basically created that own touchdown for him. But these ones were called plays, called shots for him that he beat his man and he was open and he scored those touchdowns. But his target share for this week, he has a 24% target share to Julio Jones' 18%. And it seems the last 2 weeks that Matt Ryan has definitely started looking his way a little bit more than Julio's. And I wonder if that is something that is going to continue as the season goes on, or if Julio is going to regain that dominant, wide receiver 1 spot and get all of those looks from Matt Ryan. We know what he can do, but his touchdown usage has been, his Achilles heel. It's been the thing that's been holding him back from being, number 1 wide receiver. He's always got the yardage, never getting into the end zone. Seems like that trend is happening yet again. And I wonder if you're concerned about that, Kevin.
I'm not concerned because it's still Julio. I mean, it's concerning that he doesn't get touchdowns, but the guy still gets 1,400 yards a year or season. Yeah. So I mean, even if he ends up with the 3 touchdowns, he's still going to be a top tier wide receiver, and you're still going to get a decent return on your investment for him, particularly where he dropped to the 2nd round, I think, in a lot of places this year. So, I'm not overly concerned. I would love to see him get more touchdowns, but at the end of the day, as long as the volume stays there, which I think it will. I mean, he's still getting targets, and 34 targets I think he has on the season. So in 20 receptions, he leads the team in receiving yards, obviously. So I mean, it's going to be there. He'll get touchdowns. He's not going to have none, right?
Yeah,
I think he's not going to have none.
What is he going to have? 3 again?
What's interesting is that Mohamed Sanu actually leads the team for wide receivers in snap percentage over Julio Jones, 81% to 89%. Calvin Ridley starting to creep up a little bit more in the snap percentage at 61%. So he's behind, but getting there. Yeah. I mean, I'm not concerned about Julio. I won't be until we get a little further into the season and he's still at the 0. But yeah, I mean, it's just what you're gonna get out of Julio. So I think his value was baked into his value this year, right?
I was baking in some more touchdowns.
Oh, you might have baked in a little too much or overbaked, or
a little baked,
I don't know. I don't know what it is, but
a little too baked.
So on the other side of the ball, Michael Thomas gets another 10 receptions. Meanwhile, somehow Alvin Kamara got 15. How does he get 15 catches?
Well, his quarterback knows how to utilize him in the passing game.
Yeah, I guess
so. That sounds like.
I don't know what the totals were for week 3, but he's got to be up there as far as league leaders in receptions right now. So, yeah, it's crazy to me. Let's see. Alvin Kamara is number 2 in the league in reception, tied with Antonio Brown.
It's crazy.
That's absolutely insane. What did you take away from New Orleans? Anything new that we should talk about? Anything we should think about? It was nice to see Cam Meredith get a touchdown.
Yeah, that was nice. Absolutely, somebody that we were, I got him on a couple teams in some new dynasty leagues. That him going to New Orleans was a positive thing for him. But with the coming back from the knee injury and Traquan Smith having the preseason that he did, you were kind of worrying or wondering if he was going to be able to come back. There was very quiet about his injury and his return. So, yeah, it was nice to see him come back. But in terms of weekly reliance, it's Kamara, it's Drew Brees, it's Michael Thomas. These guys are getting the vast majority of the volume. I think what I'm most interested to see is how it's going to work when Mark Ingram comes back, what his role is when he returns, and how much that bites into Kamara or Michael Thomas in terms of, just volume going a different direction, because he was very solid last year, we saw. And I want to know how that's going to affect those two studs in New Orleans.
Agreed. All right, we can continue on. The Chiefs continue to roll along, putting up another 30-plus points, 38 points in this one against the 49ers. We talked about what happened with Jimmy Garoppolo. It was late in the game, so wasn't as much impact on this particular game as there will be going forward. But what stood out to you from either side of the ball here?
I think the craziest thing is that it was nice to see Kareem Hunt get the point totals for his fantasy owners this week, getting some short goal line runs, converting those into a couple touchdowns. Seeing that Kareem Hunt has 5 receiving yards total this year was one of the craziest things that I had seen. You assumed from last year, we saw the first game that he had last year. I believe it was against the Patriots. Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong.
It was.
And he had that huge game. I believe it was 3 touchdowns, a ton of receiving yards. And to see him only have 5 receiving yards and just not being used or utilized in that aspect of the game at all. And it's not because of anything more than the Chiefs just don't need to. Pat Mahomes is chucking the ball wherever he wants down the field, and he just does not have to throw or check down to Kareem Hunt. So I think that is something that surprised me a lot. I wonder if that's going to continue throughout the entire year. I wonder if fantasy owners are a little worried about that at this point, knowing that they are such a pass-heavy team right now, and they are being so efficient and at it that Kareem Hunt's value is going to take a little bit of a hit, and they're not relying on him as much because they don't need to anymore.
Yeah, we talked about a little bit preseason, and to me, the bigger concern with Kareem Hunt is that, he had 18 carries for 44 yards. That's only a 2.4 yards per carry average in this one. I think for me going into the season, I wasn't as high on his pass catching ability, but I thought that we talked about him getting between 275 and 300 carries, and with a decent yards per carry average, he'd be up near the league lead in rushing again. And, you expect him to get some touchdowns as well. On top of that, he gets 2 in this one. So the touchdowns were there, which is great. But that, the volume for him on the ground is only going to be good if he's getting positive yardage. And, so seeing that low yards per carry number makes me a little bit nervous, hopefully a little bit of an aberration there. But, I'm not as worried about the passing game because I just don't think that needs. I think what you get from him in the passing game is more gravy than anything else. So I'm not super worried there. We talked about George Kittle a little bit already. Marquise Goodwin returned in this one and did catch a touchdown, 3 for 30. We didn't see any big explosive plays, though. Probably not going forward either, huh?
Yeah, it's going to be a little tough. It's going to be a little difficult there. Like we said when we were talking about Jimmy Garoppolo earlier, all of these guys take a little bit of a hair, and it's unfortunate because Marquise Goodwin injured the first week with the hamstring, missed the week 2, came back last week and was able to get back in there and, I believe he scored a touchdown on a rushing play or a short pass play. I believe he did get into the end zone, but yeah, it just, until you see how this offense is going to look with the new quarterback in there, it's hard to trust or rely on any of them except for Kittle. I think Kittle's the one you can give, you can throw him in there this week and feel like he should still be pretty solid, but everyone else is going to be a crapshoot week to week.
Sure. One more thing, back to the Chiefs side, I forgot to ask you about because I'm curious. We've talked before about Sammy Watkins versus Tyreke Hill, and do they cancel each other out? They were both mediocre in this one, to be honest with you, but Watkins gets the touchdown. Do you see more games like this going forward, or are you on the Tyreke or Sammy Watkins bandwagon?
I would be on the Tyreke bandwagon. I think that you back and forth between them throughout the season. Sammy Watkins, when he's been able to stay healthy, a prolific wide receiver, and now surrounded by other weapons that can take all the focus off of him. Third and offenses they're focusing on with Tyreke Hill and Travis Kelce there, and then Kareem Hunt as well. So yeah, I think that helps him out a little bit, and I think he'll benefit from that. So I think Tyreke is still the guy that you're going to want. In that Hughes, obviously someone you can play and rely on week to week, but Sammy Watkins could probably be like a flex play that you can, he's going to get touchdowns every once in a while and it's going to help you out. And then he'll have some duds because that's kind of what he does. He goes up and down.
Yep. I just don't really love either of these guys. I think there's too much volatility with both of them, and Tyreke was overdrafted for me to have that kind of volatility. But I did have Sammy Watkins in a few areas, and I guess we'll see going forward. The Raiders and the Dolphins. The Dolphins are 3-0, Steve. That makes me angry.
Scared. I was going to say scared. You've got to be a little worried, huh?
Oh, no, I'm not worried. No, not
even. Not at all?
No, not even a little bit. And, we can get into the Patriots later, but I'm just not. I don't think that obviously the Bills had a great day, and the Dolphins are 3-0, and the Jets have an exciting young quarterback, but none of those teams are there yet. The Patriots will still win the division. So,
but are the Patriots there? The Patriots now.
I just think it's all. I think it's all overblown too much. I mean, we hear it every year, right? They fail in September, and everyone it's the end of the era, and then they end up 12-4, and they end up in the AFC Championship. So, I expect something similar to that as well. But Derek Carr in this one will start on the Raiders side of the ball. Threw for 345 yards and a touchdown in this one, but another 2 picks. Gruden again brought up the idea that he's mastered this offense, but he keeps throwing interceptions. So that's 5 interceptions for him on the season. And from a fantasy perspective, he's really just not putting up a lot of points. Do you expect Carr to turn it around a little bit, or is this what we're going to get out of him all year?
I don't know. This is, his 3rd or 4th year under center for the Raiders now. This is starting to kind of seem like this is who he is. And, maybe he gets more and more comfortable with this offense as the year goes on. I wouldn't say that he's mastered it so far, unless his decision-making is just that bad. But, yeah, he's had some issues. His yardage was very good this week, but I think that you saw in the first quarter, I think Jordy Nelson had well over 100 yards receiving on 2 huge busted plays that he broke wide open for. So that was nice. But take those 2 plays out of it, he didn't have a great game again. So I would be a little worried if I were a Raiders fan. They gave him a lot of money. He is going to be there for quite a few years. And it's starting to seem that he's just a quarterback, a mediocre quarterback. When it seemed, when they gave him all that money, it seemed like he was making the next step. He was going to be, that franchise guy. And I'm not really sure that he is that guy anymore. It seems like he's putting them in a lot of bad spots with his decision making, with the turnovers and that kind of stuff, not taking enough chances. He's killing Amari Cooper. My God. Amari
so
Cooper
just so
right
brutal.
He had the good week against Denver in week 2 and then just right back in the crapper last week against the Dolphins. It was awful. And I would be a little worried as a whole for this Raiders organization.
Yeah, it's definitely
Vegas could help him out.
What's that?
Vegas might help him out.
Yeah, they need to move. I think maybe going to Vegas will get some of their older players to retire. I mean, Jordy Nelson obviously looked great in this one, but outside of that, this team's just a mess, and you just can't trust it. I mean, Marshawn Lynch getting good volume. He's got touchdowns, so that helps. But yeah. So what about those 3-0 Dolphins? Anything about them surprising to you? Are you buying into anything here? Tannehill throws 3 touchdowns. No way I'm counting on that.
No, I wouldn't be counting on that either. That's more of a product of the Raiders defense, I think, than Tannehill being an elite quarterback. They've started the season off pretty well. They haven't really had the toughest schedule, I wouldn't say. So that might help their 3-0 start. But from a fantasy standpoint, it's kind of hard to rely on these guys. Albert Wilson has a touchdown for the second week in a row. Kenny Stills gets into the end zone again, so he is on the up end of the roller coaster. Be careful for next week as he drops back down. And Kenyon Drake and Frank Gore still plucking volume from each other. Makes either one of them really hard to trust. You're relying on touchdowns from basically everyone on this team. So Kenyon Drake would be the one I would rely on most, but I would really prefer not to have to trust any of these guys.
Yeah, Kenyon Drake in at 67% of the snaps, which is pretty decent for a running back, so that's good. Kenny Stills at 93% of the snaps, but we know what Kenny Stills are. You're going to get good games, you're going to get bad games, you're going to get games it's a roller coaster with Kenny Stills. So we will continue to see that up and down throughout the rest of the season. We can move on because I don't really have anything else to say about the Dolphins. And we can talk about the Bills and the Vikings if you'd like. I'm not sure the Vikings actually showed up to this game, but they theoretically were on the field. But Josh Allen was the story. He only throws for 196 yards and a touchdown, but he gets 2 touchdowns on the ground and 39 yards and 10 carries. Yeah, the kid looked good. Look, it was a great day for fantasy, and I'm sure not. Maybe people had him in a 2-quarterback league. Maybe teams that were tanking. I don't know. Someone might have had him in their lineup, but he looked decent. It's a very difficult defense. Obviously, the moment wasn't too big for him, so I think that's what you take away, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with what you expected to see from him in that game, with what you saw, you couldn't be anything but impressed with how he handled that moment. And when things started going, one way, everyone had to be saying, okay, well, what's going to happen now? What's going to happen? It's going to fall apart. The Vikings are going to come back. And then before you know it, it's 24-0 in the first half. And the Vikings can't do anything. It was, and just as much, the Vikings playing like absolute garbage as the Bills playing probably the best game that they will play all year. But yeah, I'd take away that maybe Josh Allen isn't as bad as people think. He might not be the Baker Mayfield. He might not be that exciting guy. That team is not the Browns, which is weird to say. Like, they don't have all the playmakers on their teams that the Browns do. But I would be excited if I was a Bills fan. I think that was something that definitely could have changed your mind on what you might have thought about that team. And so I think it's good for that. In terms of fantasy, Chris Ivory, great job getting your best game of the year. That was amazing. And I don't know. The Bills are tough. I'm still not putting any faith in any of those guys from a fantasy standpoint.
Yeah, as I was reminded by our good friend Julie Bissonette, they're tied with the Patriots right now. So good for her. Good for her. But I'm with you. I'm not really trusting it. I did like seeing Chris Ivory have that kind of day, only because if you are a LeSean McCoy owner and you haven't sold him yet or even dropped him, there's hope there, right? If Josh Allen can turn things around a little bit and they can do that kind of thing against a tough Vikings defense, maybe you can expect that LeSean McCoy will be somewhat effective, at least as an RB2 going forward.
Yeah, I'd agree there, because LeSean McCoy, man, that is one that people warned everyone about. I own 0 LeSean McCoy in any of my redraft leagues this year. even in the third round, I just was not taking that chance. And, injury aside, where he didn't play last week, the 2 games that he did play did not look good for him. So yeah, you hold out hope that when he comes back from this injury, that just like, Baker Mayfield's supposed to give his offense a boost. Hopefully this helps boost up LeSean McCoy's value. So
you want to hear one of the most interesting snap percentage stats that I've seen so far?
Yes.
Through 3 weeks, can you guess what the difference in snap percentage between Adam Thielen and Stefon Diggs is?
I will just say Adam Thielen is leading.
Yeah, but by how much? What do you think the difference is? What's the percentage difference?
I'm going to say 7%.
That's pretty high. I would have thought like they're pretty, somewhat even. Adam Thielen on the field for 97% of the snaps. Stefon Diggs, 86%. So 86% is great. I mean, that's fine, right?
Yeah.
You're certainly not worried about production when you're on the field 86% of the time, but 97 to 86, I just did not expect an 11% difference. That's huge.
Yeah, and in this game that we were just talking about, obviously, since we're still talking about it, Adam Thielen had a 39% target share in this game to Stefon Diggs' 20%. So in a game where they are throwing the vast majority of the time because they were down so much so early, Kirk Cousins is looking to Adam Thielen quite a bit. He is the number 4 overall wide receiver in full PPR scoring, and he's been a great value. So I don't know if that's going to stay, that gap is going to stay that way, but it seems so far that he's relying quite a bit on Adam Thielen, and I think that it is going to continue. It's seeing that type of target share for him throughout the year. I think that their rapport together is going to stick.
It's a 10% difference on the season through all 3 weeks, 31% to 21%. At 43 targets for Thielen and 29 for Diggs. We talked about it preseason. We didn't know who Cousins was going to lock onto, right? You didn't know coming into that offense who he was going to get that rapport with. Could have been either of them, and it looks like it's going to be Thielen. So, all right, let's keep moving along through some of these games here. The defensive stalwart Colts, just barely.
I knew what game you were going to. It's just
barely
alone.
The Eagles managed to somehow put up 20 points on the 85 Bear-like Colts, this one a lot closer than I think people expected, Steve.
Yeah, I think the Colts have been a little better defensively than most people gave them credit for heading into this year.
Because Sal's not here. You can say it. They're a good defense.
You know what? I am going to say it. I'm not scared right now. I'm not scared anymore. The Colts are a damn good defense.
That's right.
And Kevin should be heralded as pointing that out to us before the season even began. Right. No, but they've been good. I think what's most concerning about the Colts is their offense. And Andrew Luck is back, but man, he is throwing the ball like a Joe Flacco of old. It is not impressive. He's not turning the ball over as much as Joe Flacco used to, but
it's like a Chad Henne. No, not Henne. Chad Pennington. Remember Chad Pennington?
Yes, I do.
The old Jets quarterback that threw it like 6 yards per pass.
And I wish Luck would be throwing it 6 yards per pass. I'm pretty sure the target is lower than that. So, that's what's most concerning right now, because it takes T.Y. Hilton. It lowers his value a little bit. I believe I read that his average depth of target coming into this year had never been lower than 13, and right now it's around 8 yards. So that's a huge hit to his game.
Yep. You know who has the best average depth of target on the team?
It's got to be Eric Ebron.
You know it. You know it. At 10.2, he is the highest. Think about that, though. 10.2 is the highest depth of target for the whole team, and it's the tight end.
Yeah, that is what I would be worried about if I were a Colts fan. If I were an Andrew Luck owner, which I am in a few spots, I'm sure you've got him in a few spots as well, Kevin.
Oh, he's many. He's
throwing the ball well, but he's not letting it go. Like, he's not letting loose. He's not chucking it down the field. I want to see a little bit more of that. I hope it's not something that, like, physically he just cannot do. Maybe it's more of a mental thing that he's just not wanting to put that much stress on his arm. But I would really want to see that turn around. Maybe he's just setting the league up for the second half.
I don't think it's a mental thing. They brought in Jacoby Brissett for a Hail Mary. Like if that doesn't tell you that something that he can't chuck it yet. Now look, I've been saying,
then why is he out there?
I've been saying all along I'm not terribly worried about Andrew Luck. I think that he'll be fine. I honestly believe that they know their team is not that great, besides from the defense. I mean, obviously the defense is going to keep them in games.
Stellar.
We know this. But honestly, I think they know they're going through a little bit of a rebuild here. They're hoping to do it fairly quickly, and they've made some good moves. They're playing better than I think people think they thought they would have on the defensive side of the ball, but I think they're smart to let him take it easy, and maybe they're trying to keep that, keep him from hurting himself.
So knowing that he can't throw the ball past the line of scrimmage very often, do you think it would be smart of them to try and bring in Le'Veon Bell, someone that he can check the ball down to left and right, and let Le'Veon Bell do all the work? No, why not?
Well, so I would say, here's the thing.
They've already got the top 5 defense. They've got the top 5 quarterback.
It's true. I can't argue that.
They've got the top 5 quarterback potentially.
Someone brought up, the 49ers trading for Lev Bell too. And I get it. Like, I get why these teams might. And I know it's still early for teams to be out of the race, but I think that you have to have a realistic view of your team, right? And I think both San Francisco and Indianapolis know they're not competing for a Super Bowl this year. And Le'Veon Bell's going to be a free agent next year. So unless they did unless they did a trade and then they signed him to a contract, which is possible, sure. If they can do that and get it done, I'm all for it but they have spent a lot of draft capital in Indianapolis on running backs lately with Hines and Mack and the other,
but also their offensive line too. They did a lot of offensive line stuff this year.
They did, yeah, but I don't know. I don't see Le'Veon Bell. I think he's going to go to the Jets. I think that's the most likely scenario at this point. We've heard that they've been interested, either that or Tampa Bay for some reason. Even though they just give Ronald Jones the ball. We'll get to that.
Just try.
Anything with the Eagles? I mean, obviously it was the return of Carson Wentz, and he had an okay day, 255 yards and a touchdown. He ran the ball a little bit. I think they're trying to keep him, in the pocket a little more right now, which is smart. Wendell Smallwood looked like the best running back on the field, though. That's weird, huh?
Yeah, that was odd. And I think they threw the ball a lot more than I would have assumed, with it being Wentz's first game back. And the weather there the entire time, so I think that it was a good sign to see Wentz perform like he did, not having any setbacks. I think that, going forward, you'll be able to trust him, and I think he'll just continue to get better and better as the season goes on. It was odd to see them playing Smallwood. You don't know if the Corey Clement popping up on the injury report maybe had some usage or not getting the bell cow work like a lot of people thought he might.
Hello, boys.
Whoa.
Oh, hey.
Hello.
What's going on?
Oh my
God. Wow, this is amazing. So
Football Funhouse, Phil Apple hanging out with the boys live.
What's up, Funhouse? What's up? You guys met on the Fantasy Life app, which I love.
We
love
did.
Guys. It's amazing the amount of success this podcast has had. You guys do a great job.
Thank you very much, Matthew. That's awesome.
Oh, man.
Can't hear you. Don't worry about it.
Wow.
That was amazing.
All right, so that was amazing. So for those of you who are listening to the podcast and not watching,
one person saw that.
One person saw that. Congratulations to you who saw that. But for those of you listening, that was Matthew Berry live at his show with Sal, taking the phone and giving him the live hit there. So, well, thank you very much,
with
Matthew
Daniel
Berry.
Dopp and Stephania Bell and Field Yates. They were all right there. That was amazing.
There. So that was awesome. So we apologize for the little break in there, but well worth it, huh, Steve?
Oh my God. I don't even know how to continue from now. We should just end the show.
We were going to talk a little more about the Eagles, but I don't even care anymore. We can just move on. So
yeah, that was crazy.
Let's talk about the Packers and Washington. It's 31-17. I did not expect Washington to win this game. They're 2-1. They came out to a big lead and never really looked back. Aaron Rodgers throws for 2 touchdowns in this game, but he does not look well.
No, he does not look like Aaron Rodgers. Another game that was played in just absolute garbage weather, raining and, it's windy. Not as bad as the Steelers Cleveland week 1, but definitely not the type of weather you want your running back playing in when he's nursing a sprained right knee. So yeah, it was a rough game for them. They, got down early, which meant he was going to have to throw the ball for the remainder of the game. And he did pretty well. He still put up good numbers. He's Aaron Rodgers, that he's not going to be stopped. But I think this is what the Green Bay Packers are going to have to deal with all year. Their defense for another season is not good. They can't stop anybody. And so they're going to have to deal with getting down in games. And if they don't score first and, try and get out ahead where they can try and utilize the run game a little bit more, they're going to have to rely on him. I think the knee is going to be a problem for him throughout the entirety of the season until, maybe he can get a bye week, or they can get into a few matchups where they are able to rely less on him throwing the ball. But luckily, he is Aaron Rodgers, so he does what he needs to do to put up those fantasy points for all of us.
Geronimo Allison has a 15% target share. Obviously, he's still the third receiver, as 23 for Adams and Cobb, and 22 for Cobb. But Allison's also in on 75% of the plays. That's crazy for a third receiver. 75% for a third receiver.
Yeah, and he is wide receiver 20 overall in full PPR scoring right now. A lot of that, he had a big touchdown over the weekend. So a lot of that has to do with that. But still, he is getting play. They are running a lot of 3 wide receiver sets, obviously, for him to be on the field as much as he has been. I think that he's a great option. I think that he is starting to get looked at a little bit more than a Randall Cobb, not in terms of necessarily, target share from, Randall Cobb is a safety blanket for Aaron Rodgers. But Geronimo Allison's becoming a Devontae Adams type to Devontae Adams, where Jordy Nelson was the main guy there, like Devontae is now. And now you've got this other guy, Geronimo Allison, that's able to benefit from these other good wide receivers being there. And so you see him running wide open down the field like he was on Sunday. So I like Geronimo Allison as a speculative ad in some 12-team leagues if you've got, a deeper roster. I like him. I like him a lot.
All right, so let's talk about it. It was the first time we saw Jamal Williams, Ty Montgomery, and Aaron Jones on the field together. 30 snaps for Jamal Williams, 20 for Ty Montgomery, and 17 for Aaron Jones. So Aaron Jones comes in last there, but the carries went 6-5-4 in favor of Jones, then Williams, then Montgomery. Montgomery also had 7 targets. Which was a nice boost to his day. So what do we got going forward, Steve? Do we know anything? Did we learn anything from this game, or do we have to still wait and see?
I think we still have to wait and see a little bit, but I think that if this is going to be how most of the Packers games go, where they, find themselves down 15 or 20 points early on in the game, then Aaron Rodgers and Ty Montgomery are going to make up the bulk of, the production out of the backfield. Jamal Williams is a plotter. I've said that before. I think he's the best typical running back of the bunch. But if he's only going to be utilized for pass protection, and Aaron Jones and Ty Montgomery are going to be the guys that are running and catching balls out of the backfield, they're obviously going to be the more productive fantasy running backs. So I think that a lot of how the game, it's going to be game flow dependent. I think Mike McCarthy has said that he would like to continue utilizing all 3 of these guys together, which is exactly what we do not want to hear. But I think until someone really grabs the job by the reins and runs away with it, it's going to be something that we have to deal with week to week, and it's going to be a bit of a headache.
All right, we have taken far too much time to go through most of these games already, but on the Washington side, are you trusting Adrian Peterson going forward? Obviously nicked up a little in this one. We have to monitor his status, but it looks like he's going to be fine. But do you trust it going forward?
I think that AP is also somebody that's going to be a little game flow dependent. We saw it from week 1 to week 2 to week 3. Weeks 1 and 3, they got out to a lead. They were able to start running the ball and start hammering it with AP, and he did great with the workload that he was given. In week 2, they found themselves behind, and they kind of went a little more towards Chris Thompson. So I think that as long as he's healthy and, as long as game flow dictates that he's able to be in the game, I think he will be good. But I don't know if that's going to happen week in and week out for Washington. So I think he'll have his ups and downs. Right now in half-point PPR scoring, he is running back 6. I don't think he'll remain in the top 10 or the top 12 or for that matter, I don't think he'll remain there all season. So I would think that he'll probably have a little bit of regression coming for the rest of the year.
All right. Well, before we move on, I have to ask you, Steve, are you tired of getting crushed by the pros in DFS?
Absolutely.
Well, listen up, both you and all DFS players and sports bettors. The quantedge.com has the tools you need to play like a pro. With their lineup optimizer, injury tools, wide receiver, cornerback matchups, and head-to-head tools, you will be armed with everything you need to win. Make up to 150 lineups in seconds, see matchups to exploit, and compare players to help you make the right decision on you're on the fence about at the quantedge.com. You'll get exclusive access to the industry experts, articles, podcasts, and the TQE community by participating in the premium membership chat. We at the Fantasy Football Funhouse have a special deal for our loyal listeners too. Using promo code FFFunhouse, that's 2 F's or 3 F's and an unhouse. As
Sal's going to kill you.
He's totally going to kill me for that. You can get $10 off your first month. So that's FF Funhouse is the promo code. If you want to get $10 off your first month at the Quant Edge, go to thequantedge.com and sign up today. All right. As I mentioned, we have taken far too long with me running you through these games, Steve. So I'm going to let you take over. I'm going to ask you, what do you like about what struck you as interesting about the Panthers 31-21 win over the Bengals?
I got to say, after week 2, when we saw Christian McCaffrey get 14 catches, I thought that was going to be kind of, an eye-opening experience for Cam Newton. He might want to continue doing that. They worked very well for them. Actually, I'm pretty sure they lost to Atlanta that week, but still, it worked very well for my fantasy team for him to throw to Christian McCaffrey as often as he did. And to see that he had 0 catches through the first half and deep into the third quarter, that made me sad. I was a little sad to see that, but their offense is running very well. Cam Newton looks like the good Cam again. He is stealing all of the goal line rushes from Christian McCaffrey, but
so irritating.
It is very irritating. I think that will change. I think he'll probably end up with maybe like 5 rushing touchdowns still, but he should have a couple already. But anyway, I think the most exciting thing to see from this game from both sides is the usage from Tyler Eifert has been going up from week to week to week. Tight end is a pretty rocky position this year, as it seems to be every single year. But this year, for some reason, once you get past, the Gronk, even Gronk's not doing great. But once you get past, Travis Kelce, those big main guys, it's kind of hard to find somebody. So Tyler Eifert, all the jokes that he gets about him not being able to stay healthy, he's been in these first 3 weeks. They've upped his usage every single week. His targets from weeks 1 through 3, from 3 to 4 to 8. His air yards have gone from 20 to 30 to 99. And his receiving yards have gone from 44 to 23 to 74. So they're using him more and more. The only thing that's not really there yet for him has been the red zone targets and the touchdowns. I think that is something that they will definitely start to look for more, especially if AJ Green is, for some reason, having to miss this game. He's dealing with a bit of a groin injury, I believe. And so I think that Tyler Eifert is somebody you might want to add to your bench sooner rather than later, just in case they start using him in the red zone a little bit more. He was a big piece of that offense. He's a dynamic tight end when he stays healthy. So I like the way that they're starting to use him more.
Yeah, 41% of the snaps in week 1. In week 2, it was 64% of the snaps. And then, of course, in week 3, he was in on 65%. So that's gone up every week as well. Definitely key to see him get more usage and more yardage and more targets, because he was such a great value, in the offseason. I took him in a lot of places just simply because he was you could get him so late. Yeah. So if he hits on this season, I know a lot of people are going to be very happy. If he's available in your league somehow, if someone, if he wasn't drafted or if he was dropped or anything like that, by all means, I think he's a great pickup. So he's a guy that with tight end being a wasteland outside of the top 3, I think you got a guy like that who could creep into that every week start pretty easily going forward. All right.
I agree with that.
Let's keep moving. The Titans won a barn burner. I can't even imagine what you could possibly say from a fantasy perspective about this game. The Titans win 9-6 over the Jaguars. No one did anything.
No.
And I think the only thing of note really is that Mariota, came back in this game, right?
Yeah,
And
well, he was forced to after Gabbert got hurt.
Gabbert got a concussion. Mariota comes in and looks okay, but apparently still can't make all the throws and can't feel his fingers. So you got to monitor that going forward. He's really killing my Corey Davis prediction. It makes me very angry. Corey Davis getting a ton of, very high snap percentage, very high target share, but there's not much happening, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, when you don't have a quarterback to throw you the ball, it makes life for a wide receiver rather difficult, and that seems to be what's going on there. That entire team, with Delaney Walker not there anymore, with the two running backs, Deion Lewis and Derrick Henry, the stuff going on at quarterback, it is impossible to rely on any one of these guys on a weekly basis. I mean, even Deion Lewis, who after the first week, a lot of people were quick to make that flip from Derrick Henry to Deion Lewis, but then they've both been pretty, mediocre to bad for the last 2 weeks. So I don't know if you're really relying on them for anything. The wide receivers you can't rely on for any type of weekly floor type production. It's just it is a wasteland there in Tennessee right now, and I don't want any of it.
Nope. I don't either. Your Broncos suffered a tough loss to the Ravens, 27-14. Case Keenum's not very good right now.
Yeah, he is not taking a ton of chances, and it just does not seem like their offense is. The first 2 weeks, they seemed so much better. And, Philip Lindsay got ejected out of this in the second quarter, late into the second quarter. That doesn't change the whole entire dynamic of their offense, but it seems like a lot of it relies on how Case Keenum is playing. And we knew heading into this year that were we going to get Minnesota Vikings Case Keenum, or are we going to get the rest of Case Keenum's career, which has not been what we saw last year with the Vikings. So at least right now, it seems like it's a little bit of a mixture between the two. I will say that he's not playing awful. He's not making a ton of mistakes, turning the ball over. It's just, playing on the road in Baltimore, their first road game. It's a tough place to play. Baltimore is a decent defense there. So I will give them another week to see how that's going. But it's just, I don't know. I think Emmanuel Sanders has been the bright spot on that offense. And then, of course, Philip Lindsay has been a good story there. Royce Freeman gets into the end zone again. But Demaryius Thomas has got to be the one that's worrying most people. I don't think that he is going to quite live up to the old ADP this year.
Yeah, it's definitely tough as far as Demaryius Thomas. I have him in a lot of places as well. He is currently at a 23% target share, so he's still leading the team in targets with 24 to Emmanuel Sanders 22. But interestingly enough, he's just not on the field as much. 88% snap percentage for Sanders versus 79%. That's week 3. When you look at the season, it's a little closer with Demaryius Thomas up in the 80%. So you see Courtland Sutton on the field for 73% of the plays. Do you think that he starts to get a little bit more look as the season goes on if Demaryius is struggling?
Yeah, I think so. I think that they brought him in to definitely a red zone type guy. And so seeing him being on the field that often, even when it's not just, limited to red zone opportunities, is definitely very uplifting. He is a freak wide receiver. This first year being buried on the depth chart behind these two very good wide receivers, I think is one of the best spots like he could have landed. He can learn from these guys next year. One, if not both of those guys are going to be gone, he is going to be taking over that lead wide receiver role. And I think that what they're doing with him is great. I think that his usage will go up throughout the year, but being able to rely on him week to week with those other two guys there, I don't think you're there yet.
Yeah, Baltimore gets the win in this one, but nothing really overly fancy. Collins and Buck Allen both get touchdowns to kind of save their days since they didn't do too much outside of that. John Brown, we knew he wasn't going to get a touchdown every week, 5 for 86, so still very good day overall for him. But, I think you got to expect the days he doesn't score. This is kind of what you're going to see. So still a great receiver as a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, flex play type. All right, let's keep moving. The Giants and the Texans. Hey, I don't know if you've heard of this kid, but that Saquon Barkley guy, he's all right.
Yeah, he's not bad. He's not bad at all.
He gets 17 carries, 82 yards, and a touchdown in this one. Another 5 for 35 through the air. He just looks like just an overwhelming bright spot on that team. The Giants actually looked somewhat decent in this one. Manning throws 2 touchdowns. Odell Beckham has 109 yards, although he didn't get in the end zone. Your boy Shepard gets a touchdown if anyone's actually playing him. 6 for 82.
Yep.
What do you think about that? Can he be? Is he a guy that anyone should be starting?
I think at least for this next week, I saw some on the old Twitter. Lots of stats floating around on the old Twitter, and the wide receiver 2 that has gone up against New Orleans have what, as the kids say, they eat. They do very well. They score a lot of points. So I'm expecting Sterling Shepard to have a big game. If not Sterling Shepard, it'll be Odell Beckham. He has not gotten in the end zone yet these first 3 weeks. I'm sure he is itching to get that first touchdown or 2. So yeah, I would have Sterling Shepard in this week. I'm expecting a pretty big shootout from this game, as tends to happen with the Saints if you're not the Browns. And so I think Sterling Shepard is solid for one more week. I took him out of my lineup in Falafel last minute last week.
With Evan Ingram banged up, you got to keep an eye on that, whether or not he's going to play. It looks like he's going to be out. And Saquon Barkley, interestingly enough, getting 25% target share on the team so far. I mean, the kid's good. He's still going to eat. On the Texans side of the ball, this one was a dud. Deshaun Watson throws 2 touchdowns. Will Fuller, of course, catches one of them because that's all the guy does is catch touchdowns. Right. He has 5 receptions, 101 yards, and a touchdown. Is he an every week start?
How can you not at this point? How can you not put him in there at this point? You know, yes, there will be weeks where he does not catch a touchdown, I think, but I'm not sure right now.
You can't say definitively.
Exactly. So you have to put him in there. Deshaun Watson obviously loves him, and it's not just chuck it down the field. You know, Deshaun Jackson type touchdowns. The one that he got this week was, I believe, a red zone touchdown. So it was a close throw. And yeah, so I think you have to put him in there. If he's healthy, get him in there.
Yeah, I mean, he only
95% chance he's going to score a touchdown.
He's only played 2 games, right? He missed the first game, and he still has a 28% target share. 20 targets so far on the season. So they're going to keep feeding him, and I don't see how you can take him out of your lineup. The Rams and the Chargers, 35-23. The Rams put up another 30 spot, and they beat the Chargers. They're 3-0 now. The Rams are, and that offense is good. Jared Goff throws another 3 touchdowns. Gurley has 100 yards. There's really not much to say here. The one thing that's interesting to me is that they kind of rotate receivers, right? And they're all still serviceable. I mean, Robert Woods gets 104. He gets the 2 touchdowns, so it's his week to get touchdowns. But Brandon Cook gets 90 yards on 7 catches, and Cooper Kupp still has 71 yards and a touchdown on 4 catches. So all 3 of these guys are usable right now. Do you expect that to continue?
Yeah, they have their weeks where they don't put up that for the same week. But I think for the most part, they all have the opportunity to have serviceable weeks. So I think at this point you can put all of them in there early in there. I think the offense is such that you can rely on them, and if they have a bad week, you can assume that they're probably going to make up for it the next week, because like you said, it seems to go around in waves. Everyone's getting their share. Their defense is good enough where it's creating enough opportunity for them every single game. They're running a lot of snaps, a lot of plays every single week. We'll see what the loss of Aqib Talib and Marcus Peters to that defense might do to that this coming week, but they're just playing Arizona. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. I think it's going to be another week where you can get all your Rams in there.
We talked about how crazy it was that the Green Bay Packers have 3 wide receivers on the field as much as they do.
Yeah.
Brandon Cooks, Cooper Kupp both have 98% snap percentage. Robert Woods has 97%.
That's insane.
They
just run 3 wide receiver sets all the time.
Yeah, so let's they can sustain that, and they will. Everything you need to know about Todd Gurley, so keep getting him in. Melvin Gordon, also very good, 15 carries, 80 yards, and a touchdown in this one. We saw our guy Austin Eckler, step back a little bit in this one, and he still had over almost 70 yards. And it's just crazy to see what he's done as a secondary option. Again, if you haven't picked him up, if he's available in your leagues, go grab him, because if anything were to happen to Melvin Gordon, his value is going to absolutely skyrocket.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. We were talking about him last week. So if for some reason he's still there, yeah, go ahead and get him in there. I'd also be looking at a guy like Mike Williams, who we've seen his usage go up as the weeks have gone on. With Travis Benjamin has not been there. He's missed the last 2 games, but Mike Williams had a great game on Sunday. His targets have gone up each week. His air yards have gone up. His receiving yards have been steady. His red zone targets have gone up. So that's what you want to see. If Phillip Rivers is looking at him in the red zone, Antonio Gates was supposed to be brought in to be the red zone guy, whatever. Mike Williams is a top-notch wide receiver, drafted super high last year. He is starting to get some looks, so I would definitely look at him. He has moved ahead of Tyrell Williams as that second wide receiver behind Keenan Allen, so I like Mike Williams a lot. I would definitely be looking to stash him on the end of a bench or two.
You know what's frustrating for me is in our falafel league, I had the choice of keeping Mike Williams for like a 8th or 9th round pick. Probably should have done that given what he's done so far this season. I ended up going with Tyler Lockett, who's also been very good. So
yeah,
it worked out.
Tough to complain about that one. But look at you, Patriots fan, you're doing it.
That's it. Yep, it's what we do. All right, let's tell me about the Bears and the Cardinals. What struck you on this game? It was ugly.
Yeah, this game was not very entertaining to watch. Mitchell Trubisky still doesn't look great. I can always rely on that.
Hang your hat on that
one. Jordan Howard gets into the end zone. Happy to see that. Still like the way that he's being used in terms of the volume that he's getting. I'm happy that Rosen got in. We talked about this earlier in the show. I think Rosen coming in is the biggest takeaway from this game. I think a lot of people knew that the Bears or thought that the Bears were going to win this one. They do. And I think that Rosen coming in and that offense turning the page, a new chapter in the offense, and seeing where that's going to go, because David Johnson doing what he's doing so far. Yeah, he's got 2 touchdowns, but the yardage, the receptions, the targets, it's just none of that is there yet. And so we need to see an uptick in all of those numbers for him, because he's got the ability. The coaches just need to give him the ball.
Yeah, the snap percentage alone, he's only at 77% of the snaps so far this season, which I get it. That's a lot. It's a lot, but for a guy like that, he should be on the field every play.
Yeah.
They should not be taking him out of the field. So I'm looking right now to compare him to a guy like let's see, Todd Gurley, 81%. So it's not that much of a difference, I guess. But geez, you just feel like he should be on the field way more than he is.
Todd Gurley's getting pulled out of games that are being dominated.
That's very true. That is very true. All right. So with Rosen coming in, do we see any uptick for any of these guys? Christian Kirk had a decent day, and they have a connection. Supposedly played a little bit in college at some of the bowl or the all-star type things and passing camps. So
yeah, I would definitely hope so. I think that Josh Rosen probably be a little less gun shy. I think that he's going to be a good quarterback. And so I think that lifts everybody up a little bit. The biggest issue with Arizona has been their offensive line. And that's why, Darnold isn't as in bad a shape, or Baker Mayfield won't be in as bad a shape. They've got steadier offensive lines. Arizona's offensive line is creating a lot of problems for that offense as well. And so that will be the biggest hurdle for Josh Rosen to overcome. So I think as long as they can start playing a little bit better, I think the offense as a whole will get a bit of a lift, because I think that Josh Rosen's just better than Sam Bradford.
All right, we move along. The Seattle Seahawks 24-13 over the Dallas Cowboys, who look absolutely dreadful. Actually, both teams look dreadful. This was an ugly game. It was not entertaining. Russell Wilson gets you 2 touchdowns, luckily. Chris Carson, if people had him in there, 32 for 102, so not a great average, but at least he gets you 102 and a touchdown. So, but I think for me, outside of Russell Wilson and Tyler Lockett, I'm not even really trusting the running backs in Seattle too much, because it was Carson this week, but Penny could get a lot of touches next week, and you don't really know. I don't know that there's too much from either side of the ball. I mean, Ezekiel Elliott, maybe Dak Prescott.
Nope.
Maybe.
Nope.
So I like anyone else? Am I missing anyone?
No. You hit everybody. You had Russell Wilson, even though right now he's only quarterback 16, I believe. I think he always starts out a little slow, and then he turns it on towards the end of the year. But yeah, I agree. Tyler Lockett until Doug Baldwin comes back. He's the main passing threat on that team. And then the running backs for Seattle, like you said, we saw what happened the week before that when Carson was in for the first half and then didn't touch the ball in the second half. So that can happen just as easily next week. And then on Dallas' side of the ball, it's just Zeke. Zeke is the only one that you need. No one in the passing game. You don't want Dak Prescott. It's ugly there in Dallas. So pretty ugly from a fantasy standpoint all the way around for that game.
Yeah, Brandon Marshall has the highest target share at 20%, and he only has 10 receptions. So it's just not a good look there. Yeah, he can't catch the ball. Interestingly enough, let's check out Dallas right now because I'm curious. Who do you think has the highest target share in Dallas?
Zeke.
Very good, 20% for Zeke. Can you possibly name the number 2 on that list?
Is it Jeff Swime? Whatever it is.
Steve, see, it's just neat when Sal's not here. You open up. It's like you have confidence and you get things right. It's amazing.
That's good because Sal's going to be leaving us anytime now.
Yeah, that's right. He's on his way out. All right. I think we've talked about that game enough. And the next one I don't really want to talk about, but I guess we should. So why don't you just tell me what you thought about the Patriots and the Lions game?
We talked a little bit about the Patriots earlier. Do you think that they were forcing the issue with Sony Michel? A lot of people had predicted this was going to be his breakout game. I'm sure a lot of people assumed that the Patriots would have a lead in this one, be able to run the ball out a little bit more. When that did not happen, it did seem like that they were just continuously giving him the ball, throwing the ball to him. What did you see with Sony Michel? Are you worried at all with his this first game where he got a lot of usage and not doing a lot with it?
So there's a couple of things to dissect with this, and obviously being a Pats fan, I've sort of dug into it a little bit and done some deep thinking on what's going on with the team. The bigger concern to me is that it's predictable, right? Not so much that they kept giving him the ball. I like that they keep giving him the ball. It's that when he was on the field, he was getting the ball. And not only that, but he was getting the ball in the running game. He wasn't getting targets necessarily. He wasn't, I think there's some weird, crazy stat out there of like 30 plus plays that he's been in on. He's gotten the ball in like 28 of them or something. I don't know. I forget what the exact number is, but it's a crazy amount. So, it's defenses are keying on the fact that when he's in the game, they're going to run the ball. So the one caveat to this is it's the Patriots, right? And the Patriots do use September like an extension of the preseason. And I honestly believe, now I'm obviously a biased Patriots fan who's looking for solutions here to make myself feel better. So take it with a grain of salt. But I honestly believe that Bill Belichick does things in September to give film to teams scouting them further down the line so that he can change it up later and make adjustments that they're not expecting. I really do believe that. I think that's one of the most amazing things that Bill Belichick does as a coach. It's one of the reasons that he's set apart from so many other coaches is that he has the foresight and the ability to game plan and to utilize previous game plans to hurt teams in other ways. So I think I have to believe some of the predictability of the offense right now is, based on the fact that, for one, there's no Edelman. They have no semblance of a deep threat. So hopefully with Edelman coming back and Gordon coming back, that helps. And then with Sony, maybe they're, for one, they're trying to get the kid going, but also a little bit of predictability in that regard will help them change it up later. Now, the other piece of this is that the offensive line, while blocking pretty well for Tom Brady in the passing game, is absolutely terrible. I mean, I don't know if you saw how much you watched that game, but he was getting tackled behind. He's behind the line. I mean, there's really nothing he could do. It's not his fault. There's a lot of people in New England here saying that he looks slow and he doesn't have a burst and he can't break tackles. Well, that's hard to do when you're getting tackled a yard behind the line. So I don't fault the kid. I think there will be better days for him, and I think that he will. I like Sony Michel a lot. I love the usage, so that means they trust him at least. We'll just see how the offense expands going on. All right, so that was it for the Patriots, right?
Yep, that's it.
I can keep going if you want.
No. We're well out of time already. And then just real quick for the Lions side of the ball, Kerryon Johnson, their first 100-yard rusher in however many years since Reggie Bush was still playing on Thanksgiving, whatever that was. 16 carries, 101 yards. Is this Kerryon Johnson's backfield now?
It should be. I mean, he looks better than
so much better.
He looks so much better than anyone else. And granted, they had dump truck size holes for him. Yeah. I mean that their offensive line played phenomenal. They blocked very well. The Patriots defensive line looked like Swiss cheese. So that's great. But he's more explosive. He runs hard, and yeah, Kerryon Johnson looks good. So if he's available in your leagues anywhere, I don't see why he would be. But if he is, go get him because I think they're going to utilize him quite a bit.
All right. What would you think about this trade that I'm about to accept in my big money league? I am sending my Carlos Hyde and Adrian Peterson for Le'Veon Bell and Kerryon Johnson.
So Carlos Hyde and Adrian Peterson for Lev Bell and Kerryon Johnson. So my question for you would be, what's your running back situation if you're sending Hyde and Peterson? Who else do you have? Because you can't guarantee that Bell's coming back anytime soon. So do you have enough?
I'll have Kerryon Johnson. I'll have James White, Phillip Lindsay, and Alex Collins will be my remaining running back core.
You're going to struggle until Bell comes back, but if Bell comes back, it's obviously a home run deal. So I think if you think you can make the playoffs struggling to week 10.
I'm 3-0 right now. This has been a case of you get previous listeners of the podcast might remember when redraft season started, I drafted this team and absolutely hated it. But it was Russell Wilson, Julio Jones, Odell Beckham, Travis Kelce, and T.Y. Hilton who is surrounding my running backs.
Okay.
And then I've hit with my running backs. I have 5 of them within the top 25 of scoring.
Yep.
And
meanwhile, your other team, the rest of your team has been crap, even though they're good players.
Yeah, and they haven't even scored any touchdowns. I'm 3-0 right now. I feel like it might be time to make to go for it.
I say go for it. Like I said, here's the thing about Bell, and we can close the show on this for sure. But the trade is the best option for him, right? At this point, because if he sits out till week 10 and then comes back, the way James Conner is playing, they may not use him.
Yeah, they can just make him inactive every week.
They could make him inactive. They may use him for like 5 or 6 snaps a game. Like you have no idea. Yeah,
special teams coverage.
No idea what they're going to do with him. And I mean, that's, so there's a risk there. So you have to hope for a trade, I think, at this point with Lev Bell. And that makes me a little nervous. But I think ultimately they'll get it done because why wouldn't Pittsburgh trade him at this point?
Exactly. Why let him go for nothing?
Yep. Agreed. All right. That's it. Why don't you take us through some final thoughts?
All right. Thank you guys for listening to this episode of the Fantasy Football Funhouse, a podcast bomb from Matthew Berry and the Fantasy Focus crew. Thank you, Sal, for that. That was awesome. You can find us on Twitter at FF Funhouse. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram. You can also go to fantasyfootballfunhouse.com where you can find any past episodes of this podcast. And I don't know if we've got links to any of Sal's numerous works yet up there, but I'm sure they'll probably be up there at some point. No works.
No,
okay.
I don't think we have. Yeah.
That's good call.
I probably could, but I don't want to. I mean,
that's fair.
He talks about it enough. Fanball.com, check him out. He's got a writer's page. Thank you again to Sal for the drop in with Matthew Berry and the crew. That was awesome. Agreed. And we miss you, buddy. As much as we joke about not having you on here, we have to do way too much work when you're not here. So if you come back now, that would be great. Yeah, just want to remind everyone to add a charitable aspect to your fantasy playing experience. My Twitter page still has pinned our buddy Corey's GoFundMe link. So for his family that lost everything in Florence, if you want to check that out, that'd be cool. That's a good way to get started on giving back. As a league, you could send over one dues, whatever you want to do. Every little bit helps. And we'll be back later on this week to go through some predictions and some other fun stuff for the games upcoming this weekend. But until then, I think, Steve, we got to get out of here.
Yep, let's go.